Woo! I was not expecting to have to make this video this morning, boys and girls. Today we're talking about the 5-star Covenant hero, Elvira balance adjustment and future direction announcement. Yeah, so it's been like, what, half a day since this character came out, and we already are getting a nerf that is basically like a land speed record here at this point. So let's quickly read over the announcement, and then for those of you who are out of the loop, I'll explain the situation. Hello, this is Epic 7. This serves as a pre-announcement for the balance adjustment of the 5-star Covenant hero Elvira introduced in the January 11th update. We've identified instances where equipping Elvira with a specific artifact has led to battles lasting longer than intended, causing discomfort in World Arena and other content. We sincerely apologize. To address this issue, we are internally discussing the details for some of Elvira's skills. Our goal is to ensure heirs can use and face Elvira without discomfort to prevent excessively long battles. Certain aspects of Elvira's skills may be adjusted. Consequently, a recall will be conducted for Elvira, giving you an option to select another Covenant hero if you wish. Detailed information coming soon. So, some of you already identified this yesterday in the impressions video, but if you play Elvira on really high effect resistance with the artifact Prophetic Candlestick, which lowers cooldowns at a percentage chance when you attack the person wearing it, well, since there's only one turn gap in Elvira's immortality, and she's high effect resistance, so you can't really get rid of the immortality, there are situations that can arise where Elvira is just unkillable. And now for PvE content, I don't really care. We've had Immortal Euphine forever, so that doesn't matter. PvE is PvE. More power to players if they want to use that to win and clear content. So that's not the issue. The problem comes from playing this for PvP, right? Especially World Arena. So now what happens is you draft your first 3 things in a draft, your opponent picks whatever, and if you notice, they don't have Soulburn, Ignore Effect Resistance at this point in their draft, in their first like 4 picks or whatever, right? Or they don't have anything with high effectiveness like an Angel Light Angelica. You can just slam Elvira on 4 and an auto-win character, say like Dark Corvus, for example, on 5 and just ban last. And it puts them in a situation where they can either for sure lose to Dark Corvus over the span of like 5 to 8 minutes, or they can get tickled to death by Elvira over the span of 20 to 25 minutes, hundreds and hundreds of turns. Now, what happens if your opponent has sustained, like Destina, or they're on like Savior Auden, who has built-in lifesteal on the S1? Well, Elvira can't kill that, but those characters sure as hell cannot kill Elvira. So what ends up happening is the game takes a full 30 minutes before the game kicks you out. There is a 30-minute time limit in World Arena, at which point both of you are ejected, you both get a loss. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why would I try that strategy? Because I get a loss at the end of the day. Well, at the top of the ladder, remember, there are only a limited number of spots for Emperor and Legend level players. And since you're at the top of the ladder, you're going to be playing the same people all the damn time, which means that the old twin snake sacrifice strategy from Naruto is in effect here, which is basically if I go down and you go down with me, we're both further from the goal. So if I'm trying to make Legend and you are also in a spot where if you win, like winner goes into Legend, I pick this cheese and either I win and I go to Legend, or we both lose, and in either case, you are not in Legend, and therefore I have gate kept you out of it because you're one of the people vying for the spots that I am trying to get, that I am trying to secure. So that's a pretty garbage gameplay loop for pretty much everyone involved. The person playing it doesn't really want to play a 20-something minute game. I believe Kana went and took a bathroom break in the middle of the match of him playing Elvira. It's pretty bad for the person who has to sit there for a half hour and just kind of go like, okay, well, I can't win, but I want to make sure he loses points because I'm not just going to give him free points. And it's terrible for everybody out there watching content with the character. So it's just a garbage situation all around. That said, it's kind of existed for like a really long time. Sinful Angelica on Prophetic Candlestick and Shooting Star Arcades on Prophetic Candlestick have been around for a while, and I'm not going to name names, but there are players in the Emperor and Legend level rating consistently that do abuse this to do exactly what I talked about, which is gatekeep people out of specific ranks on the last day, because again, you either just scoop, go next, and have a chance of getting your desired rank, or you sit there and waste a half hour of your time to basically have the same result. So yeah, it's always been kind of garbage, but it's been around for years. So the question becomes, why now? I guess it's just because Elvira is top of mind and the new hotness. So everybody kind of dogpiles onto it. So going back down here, we see it says a recall will be conducted. So for those of you who are new, I'll put a picture up on your screen now of what a recall looks like. You'll see this button after the character ends up getting changed, at which point you can press it. You will receive all of your gold, your XP, your catalysts, your runes, your Mulligores, all of that will come back to you. And then you will have the option to choose a non-limited red, green, blue RGB hero of your choice. You can also even choose Elvira if you so choose. And that's something I probably will do myself, because if the character is just gutted and absolutely terrible, for completion's sake, I would like at least my resources back, especially because if you watched Tristan's stream last night, I spent Mulligores on the character. So having my Mulligores back and then deciding after the fact, after I see what other content creators do, what other players that I trust, what they do with the character, then I can make an informed decision and see if I want to put those resources back. So that is the safe thing to do. Next up, I want to highlight the little quote here at the end, the top quote here on Stove, which is by the boy, SoftTM17, who is an amazing Epic 7 content creator from Italy. If you have not watched their meme edits, they are some of the funniest videos in this whole community. So definitely check them out. But Soft says here, so you're nerfing Elvira 9 hours after release. I'm still pulling for her, and maybe like me, so are a lot of other people. So I suppose now you will refund at least all of the resources I spent on the banner, right? Or you will refund gold, skystones, covenant bookmarks, just asking, right? So he's not entirely wrong here and entirely unjustified, because we've had a similar situation to this in the past with Alencia. So Alencia, when she was released, Trample, which is the follow-up to her S1 Eradicate, people thought that triggered on dual attacks, extra attacks, counter attacks, right? Specifically counters. So people pre-built Alencia on counter set, and then to their surprise, they didn't get the follow-up when everything from like patch notes to videos suggested that that was going to be the case. It didn't explicitly say it wouldn't work. So people were kind of rightfully upset about it. And 12 hours after Alencia came out, everyone got all of their resources back from Alencia. So me, who pitied her, I got to keep the Alencia. I got all of my resources back. My friends who were like halfway to pity, they got all of their resources back. So I can understand, because again, there's a precedent. People are expecting it. But you shouldn't always expect it. You shouldn't demand things, I feel like, in this game, because it has its own history of kind of backfiring, right? You shouldn't expect to actually get anything. Most notably, nerfs. The reason we don't really get nerfs outside of these emergency situations like this patch note right here that we're talking about with Elvira, the reason we don't get nerfs in this game for characters like Conqueror Lilius or any of the other Moonlight 5 stars you think are kind of broken, Death Dealer Ray, for example, right? The reason we don't get those is because in 2019, when they actually ended up nerfing a lot of the Moonlight 5-star heroes, players wanted compensation. The compensation, be able to choose any other Moonlight 5-star of their choice. And as a result, everybody just had all the good units after getting rid of all of the bad units. And that meant that there was no way they could sell you Arbiter Vildred or any of these other selectors or characters that are like now OP because, well, you just took them off the selector. So it makes them lose money in the long run. So that's why they're so hesitant to nerf anything, because they don't want to feel like they owe you compensation for every single thing. They are a business at the end of the day. They do have to make money. And situations like this means that they lose money. Now, having a character change this early after launch, I feel like they probably should at least reimburse you. I do agree with Soft. But again, if it doesn't happen, please don't raise like a huge stink about it, because it can have, like I said, those unintended consequences like we talked about with the no nerfs policy. To give you some more recent examples of this entire thing, we have the Awakened Potential update. Garbage system, obviously, would have done catastrophic damage to Epic 7. Honestly, had it gone through, there's a chance I might not even be here as a content creator. So obviously very bad for the game, but it probably took the dev team maybe like, what, several months, half a year to make that system. And their roadmap was contingent on that system being what it was. Remember, balance adjustments were going to also be replaced by new people being added and so on and so forth. So by the community banding together and complaining, we have upended that entire system. And as a result, that's probably why. I'm not going to say it is for sure, but that's probably why we don't have any real content right now, because we basically just dismantled the whole roadmap. So on one hand, you're allowed to complain about a system that destroys the game, rightfully so, and fight for the game that you love. But then to complain that there isn't anything in place to replace it right away is kind of a little insensitive, I feel like, to the people who make this game. To give you another example, we are currently going to be nerfing Elvira, a character who is too strong with effect resistance, after months or years of content creators and everyone using like Duke Josh's survey to vote on changes that we want in the game. Most players want effect resistance reworked and want it to be stronger than it actually is. And yet here we are telling the dev team, ER is too strong on this character. Please nerf it. So do you understand what I'm saying here? There might be an unintended consequence here where effect resistance rework might never come. It might get kicked down the road for years at this point, if not come at all as a result of this. Do I think that that means that we shouldn't nerf Elvira? No, we probably should still nerf this character because, again, it's not fun for anyone involved. It's bad for viewership. It's bad for pretty much everything as a whole. But again, it will have some kind of potential unintended consequences, so please do keep that in mind whenever we talk about nerfs in this game. Don't feel like you're owed things. Like, please, I understand the frustration. It just can potentially snowball and cause more issues long-term for the game, and that sucks. But that's the reality of the situation. So the last thing I want to talk about before I wrap up this video is, how did this happen? How did this slip through the cracks, right? How did Elvira get a nerf within 24 hours of basically her release? And that's just how it works, I guess, when it comes to game balance. There will be things that slip through the cracks because, well, you don't have unlimited resources or unlimited time in game development or in balancing. So let's say Super Creative has 12 people on the balance team. And they're not exactly a large development studio. Let's assume it is 12 people, right? If all 12 of those people spend 40 hours in a work week trying to balance Epic 7, and they work for like a month on this character before release, getting it ready before it ships, that translates into thousands of hours of gameplay tested with the character, right? And they probably have formulated ideas. They think you and I and everyone else, we're only going to pick Elvira into spots where the opponent has fighting spirit because that's what it's designed to do. You're probably only going to be playing it on Beguiling Wings, or maybe like, you know, something else like Bastion of Hope, or Hostess of the Banquet, or some other ER granting artifact. That's what they anticipate you're probably going to use on the actual character, right? And they have thousands of hours of testing. All right, cool. Epic 7 is a game with hundreds of thousands of players, has millions of downloads, right? In the first like 15 minutes to 30 minutes of a character's release, the player base absolutely trounces the total amount of man hours with the character than the entire balance team combined. So even if you changed it so that it was from 12 to 24, you doubled the size of the balance team, the player base will still have way more time with the character with you within like the first 15 to 30 minutes of the character coming out than your entire balance team has had with the character in terms of just total number of hours with her, right? So that's how it can very easily slip through the cracks. Even if you went 10 times, you had 1,200 people, right? Like, or so 120. We go even 1,000, 1,200, right? You go 120, 1,200. Even if you had like 10,000 people, again, it doesn't change the fact that the people in the player base, they massively outnumber you. They will find the cracks, and the competitive players, that is what they are counting on. They are counting on finding something or some kind of interaction or strategy that you did not actually account for. That is how competitive gaming works. That's how competitive players try to rise to the top, is to break things. It is your job as somebody on the balance team, the design team, to try to mitigate that. And one way that you do that is to try to be as safe as possible when it comes to releasing new heroes, from releasing new artifacts, from doing balance adjustment previews. That's why people complain like, oh, this character isn't good enough, it's too tame. It's because they can't afford to take risks because of the aforementioned. You can't nerf anything. That is why it is the way it is. And I've been arguing with a number of personalities over the last like 2 days or so about the January 18th balance adjustment preview. And they were saying, oh, we're in a content drought. this is too hard. Like it shouldn't be this hard to make a balance patch, right? It's easy. Why are we playing it so safe? So on and so forth. Blah 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 blah. And I know a number of people who watch, you also kind of agree with that sentiment because a lot of people didn't really like my takes. The analytics show a lot of people disliked my previous January 18th balance adjustment preview because I thought that it was a pretty good balance adjustment preview. All things considered, a lot of other people really didn't. A number of you have complained to me that the Specimen Sez buff is not very good. And I kind of disagree. I think it's exactly the thing that we're talking about here, about it being safe. And that's okay, because Lightstorm on Specimen Sez is basically a guaranteed kill. You don't really need a lot of damage on Specimen Sez to actually kill. Professor Loki, for example, has proven you can kill with no critical hit chance or critical hit damage on Lightstorm with very little investment as long as the target is stunned on Specimen Sez. So Lightstorm, as far as I'm concerned, is basically a guaranteed kill. The only condition it needs is to have the target be stunned, and stuns are decently common in Epic 7. It can happen. The reason Specimen Sez sees no play before this balance adjustment is he's super easy to kill because he has the worst stat line in the game for surviving. So to offset that, they gave him evasion. But everyone complained, oh, then he's just Violet because, well, Violet dodges with the same stat line and then counters. My Spez doesn't counter. Well, they probably assumed, again, internal testing, you're going to be playing it on double-edged decrescent, which gives it counter. If it had innate counter on top of that, the chance that you land a stun is significantly higher, which means that your chance of guaranteed kills, which translate to guaranteed wins, is significantly higher. And again, we can't nerf characters, so, well, we're going to play it safe. And that's why I think it's a decent buff, because if it actually still had the crackback on a miss, and it could kill characters in one hit, which it does, isn't Specimen Sez just Savior Auden, the character that everyone complains is really annoying because it's got 70% a dodge rate. It has a really punishing counterattack if you miss, and it can kill your characters in one hit. Everybody hates that character, but everybody wants Specimen Sez to be that character, and that's kind of the thing. Like, as a balance, somebody on the balance team, you have to kind of weigh those things. You have to think about those decisions and think about the player base and how they're going to abuse it. So they err on the side of caution because, again, can't nerf. To round it out, I do want to show you a couple of examples on things that I have been a part of, that I have worked on to, again, further illustrate how difficult the concept of balance actually is and how you can see it's super easy for things to fall through the cracks. So let's start by talking about Hidan Curse Mode. This is from the Naruto Shippuden card game. The only thing you need to know about this card and this game is you win the game when you have 10 or more battle rewards, and that this card is a reinforcement card, meaning it comes out of your extra deck, which is a side deck, not the main deck that you normally play. His effect says when he receives any damage, both players win one battle reward. So if you're ahead and he takes a damage, then you could potentially win. So the strategy for Hidan is you get to 9 battle rewards, you find a way to damage Hidan, and therefore you win the game. And obviously your opponent's going to play around it. They're not going to want to deal damage to Hidan somehow. But you could see, because we wanted to be flavorful to the character, we gave him the ability to impale himself, very similar to how he does in the anime. You can pay 2 to have Hidan deal 1 damage to himself, which will trigger his own effect, give you that battle reward, and win you the game. So that's the whole point. Oh, you set up, you get the 9, you use Hidan, you win. Cool. The thing is, the cost to play Hidan Curse Mode is simply just to sacrifice a Hidan that you already have in play. And for those of you that play card games, you probably have figured this out. Hidan Curse Mode is a Hidan. So what ends up happening is the clock going from 9 to 10 is not actually accurate. It is the clock going from 7 to 10 because you basically go, I play Hidan, I go damage myself, I go to 8, I sacrifice my Curse Mode to bring out another Curse Mode from my deck. I go from 8 to 9, I sacrifice the second one, bring out the third one, and so on and so forth, and then I just win the game that way. The thing is that our entire testing team was under the assumption that reinforcements could not sacrifice themselves to bring out the same card because every other card in the extra deck cannot sacrifice itself to bring out the same card. It is only because of a very weird and oddly specific rule that this was able to be done. And only one person who is in charge of rules Q&A for the entire thing. The person who is essentially in charge of all the bullet points and interaction points, basically what would be the card game's code, was the only person that knew this. And it only took several hours to like a day or two for the player base to fine comb through all of the rules and go, oh, there's a gap in the rules here. We can exploit it. This is legal. We can just play 3 heat-ons. And it completely upended our entire projections of how the entire format was supposed to go with heat-on. Basically, we thought, A, the player base came out of nowhere and was just like, actually, there's this unintended broken thing. The format's actually B. And obviously, as you can tell, we had to spend some time to rewrite the ship. Here's another one for you. Vegex, the unsung hero, right? Fusion hero from Dragon Ball Super card game. He has this line of text here that says, permanent. You could only play mono black battle cards, right? Seems pretty straightforward. He can only play black cards. Here's Furthering Destruction Champa, which is a card, as you can see by the red border, is a red card. This is not a black card, right? It says, when you combo with this card, choose one of your attacking cards. It gains double strike, which means it does double the damage for the duration of the battle, right? Here's the thing. The play cost in the top left is 3 for Furthering Destruction Champa. Comboing, which is basically getting rid of it from your hand, similar to a Yu-Gi-Oh card like Honest, is just basically getting rid of it from your hand during the damage step. So you don't actually play Furthering Destruction Champa, you combo Furthering Destruction Champa, which means you can play it in Vegex, even though it doesn't seem like you should be allowed to play it in Vegex. So if this card had said you can only play mono black battle cards in your deck, it would not work. If it could say you could only play or combo mono black battle cards, we'd be all right. But because of this little, one word discrepancy between play and combo, it broke the format, created a bunch of one-turn kill decks, and forced a ton of erratas or bans, because if we had just banned Furthering Destruction Champa, the player backlash would have been unreal, and that's something that we just couldn't do as a team. So there you go. Similar examples. Balance is hard, guys. That's how these situations occur. Let me know down in the comments below what your thoughts are. If you think I missed anything, if you actually hate my take on balance, you can let me know that too. Regardless, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I'll catch you in the next one. Have a good one now.